All right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Samurai Brothers. This is episode 73 of our podcast. And we're going to talk today about a lot of wrestling. We had some wrestling that we want to cover at the end of last month, and then a big national tournament that happened this past weekend as well. And then sumo has started for the Haru Basho. So we'll go right into a lot of that stuff. So Matthew, just to start off with, I think it was last weekend, I believe, would have been the CIF State Wrestling Championships for both boys and girls. So I think, and then one of the things was, with Buchanan having won, one of the things I've really paid attention to was that the winner of the Doc B for the last couple of years has gone on to win the state championship. So was that the case with Buchanan doing that this year? And then who was going to take the women's championship? So just for the sake of where we're at right now, so we did see that a lot of kind of a variety of just to kind of go over the finals really quick, and then we'll go into the actual team scores themselves. So we had at 106, we had Michael Burnaby from Clovis High School over Thales Silva of Buchanan. 113, Anthony Garza, also of Clovis High School, defeating Max Marilla of Esperanza in the southern section. And then 120, the pretty much the star wrestler for this year from Buchanan, Rockland Zinkin. He was the champion over Samuel Sanchez of Esperanza. At 126, Buchanan gets another champion in Paul Ruiz over Siraj Sidhu of Clovis North. Buchanan then gets a third champion at 132 with Ashton Besmer over Slater Hicks of Valencia High School in Valencia, California. So not the Valencia of Orange County. 138, Moses Mendoza of Gilroy over CJ Huerta of Buchanan. 144, Jesse Grajeda from St. John Bosco. So we have our first Southern Section champion right there over Chris Areola of Clovis North. 150, we also had a wrestler from St. John Bosco in Michael Romero defeating Ivan Arias of Buchanan. And then Poway gets its first champion at 157, Bailey Holman over Wyatt Lewis of Crescent City from the North Central section. Then Slava, and I'm probably going to get this wrong, Slava Shahbazian from Birmingham High School in the LA section over James Caroso of Clovis. 175, Mario Carini from Poway over Isai Fernandez from St. John Bosco. 190, Jonathan Roca from Clovis North over Mason Savadan from Bosco. 215, David Calkins from Liberty in the North Central over Wes Burford from Oakdale in the San Joaquin. And then our heavyweight, which this guy's been pretty dominant, Kobe Merrill from JW North High School in the southern section over Andrew Arroyo from Clovis High School. And I think Kobe Merrill, and this is Riverside, so they don't get a lot of, I think he was the first state champion in his school district's history. So that was a pretty big deal for him last year, obviously. And he is committed to Iowa State. So that's a big, obviously a big jump there. Should not be surprising, to be honest. And then I'll go over really quick for the girls, and then we'll talk about the team scores just to see where we're at. But overall, it looks like that it was, again, mostly won by, just by looking at this, we have the central section took 6 weight classes. Southern section took 3. Poway from the San Diego section took 2. We had a North Central and a LA. So obviously, again, the central section, Matthew, dominating in the boys' weight classes. Any comments about that before we go to the girls' finals results?
That's not really surprising, all things considered, because it is they have their the central section is pretty much the section of champions in the state, so that's not really surprising.
Although I did forget to mention that Gilroy was in there, so we did have a Central Coast champion as well. So, but yeah, obviously, like you're saying, and again, this was a combination of both Clovis and Buchanan, and one champion from Clovis North as well. So, for them, that's obviously, especially coming from that particular area, it's just all Fresno Metro is what it is. And again, they're just so dominant in that area. So then what did we have for the girls' results? So then at 100 pounds, Alexandria Marin of Buchanan over Daniela Vasquez from Garces in the central section. So that was an all central section meetup. Angelica Serratos of Santa Ana High School over Marcia Nunez from Buchanan. And then here's an interesting one, Matthew. Christina Estrada from Buchanan over Alexa Smith from Orange Lutheran High School. So that's a pretty big one there for the central section. Here's another good.
I think that's probably the first finalist, men's or women's, from Olu
Orange Lutheran.
that's placed.
We'll have to look at that, but yeah,
Yeah,
you might be right.
Olu might have had a state placer before, but they've never had a finalist.
Yeah, to your recollection.
Yeah.
Okay. 115, Aubrey Gutierrez from Marina over Sky Schneider of Elk Grove High School.
Our father's alma mater.
Yep. 120, S.J. Martin from Granada High School over Ava Ebrahimi from Poway. 125, Mikala James from Central East over Angelina Borelli from Los Baños. 130, Madison Black from Newberry Park over Camille Torres from Brawley. So that's a San Diego section. Shayna Ward from Oakland Tech Senior High School in the northern section, north central. And I read up on this. I think she's the first state champion for the Oakland section in over 40 years.
Obviously that would be both men and women's, because
Yes.
women's didn't exist at the time.
Yeah, but you don't hear anything about the men's Oakland section at all. In fact, they're lucky if they field anyone, is the thing.
Well, yeah, because they have a spot, but the problem is a lot of times they don't even send people who use that spot, right?
Right. And I think then if I think and the San Francisco section also gets their own people, but I think if those spots aren't filled, then I think one of the northern section schools or one of the northern sections gets to send an extra person. But I think that just depends, and we won't get into that right now. Obviously.
Yeah, there's a lot of complexities with it.
So she defeated Zara Stewart from Orange Vista. And then 140, Isabella Austin from Houston. And then over Dulcie Martinez from Central Catholic. 145, Justina Solomua from Corona over Haru Deuce from Fremont. 155, Natalie Blanco from Chino over Mary Snyder Rancho Bernardo. And then 170, Leilani Lemus from Clovis over Sophia Lopez of Upland. 190, and this is a huge one for the southern section, Estefani Caballero from Orange High School over Emily Carvalho, Redwood Visalia. And then Gia Coons from Orange Vista over Taya Mau Solo Matagi of Nipomo As far as the 190 weight class, Estefani Caballero from Orange High School, and Matthew, that's where we kind of used to live, in that
Well, yeah,
area.
and then again, that's I don't remember.
It's
Like I
there.
said, I'm sure Orange has had a state placer. I do not remember them ever having a state champion though.
No, she's the, and this is Orange High School, not Old Lou. This is Orange High School.
Who hasn't been known to have the
No,
best wrestling.
no.
Well, another
First
interesting
state champion ever.
another interesting fact is Redwood in Visalia. I go to Visalia on a regular basis, so I've been by that school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So this is quite something that we're seeing, obviously. Just kind
We
of,
saw a lot of familiar things, but we also saw a lot of diversity in both the men's and women's, is
yes.
uniquely.
Yeah. So let me see where I can find but just to kind of, so that we're not going over this too much. In the end, what ended up happening with the scores was that, actually, let me just go to Grappler real quick so that we can go on to the second part of today's episode. In the end, with the results, Buchanan ended up taking both the men and women's state titles. And it was a case of, in the boys team, it was Buchanan had 3 champions, 12 placers overall, 288.5 team points over second place Poway, 229.5 points, 2 champions, and those were included in 11 placers. St. John Bosco rounded out the top 3 with 219.5 points, 2 champions, 9 placers. One thing I have to say this year, Matthew, is that Buchanan, I know that they had up to half of their team was actually seniors. And I think they've got a few juniors that'll be coming back next year, and then mainly sophomores and freshmen who will be coming back. So in the case of Poway, though, I think maybe they have like 2 or 3 outgoing seniors. So that means that the majority of their team, it's going to be coming back. So there's a possibility that, Poway might have an edge in the next year. Your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, especially if you have as many what's it called? Especially if you have as many champions going out from what's it called? From
Buchanan.
yeah, from Buchanan as you do. It's the even if they were to like plug in those guys with other seniors, which I don't think is likely. I think that typically they like to get their guys you know streamlined through. Yeah, they're gonna have an issue, especially if Poway is gonna have, well, 'cause not only that, even if you have um experience other like seniors per se that plug in those spots. The fact of the matter is that's the majority of your starting lineup. That's going out the door. So it's yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens next year. And I think you're right with Poway returning most of their guys again comes down because the fact of the matter is there's a mentality when it comes to starters. If you've got a guy who's been sitting on the bench for 3 years and then he's starting as a senior, that's still the someone else who's like 1 or 2 years younger that's been in the varsity lineup that whole time is going to have the mental edge.
Mm-hmm. And then let me see here. So I don't think they gave us then. I'm trying to look to make sure on the. So I think. So, and this is one of the things that couldn't really find this on, but Buchanan did end up taking the women's championship as well. Marina took second, close call on that. But this is the first time in history that one school has won both the boys and girls
I'm
divisions.
actually surprised that Buchanan hasn't won the women's earlier because you'd think that with that solid men's base that would translate into the women. But for some
I
reason,
I
I
think
don't
it
know
took
if it,
some time.
I don't know if maybe it's just the fact that they weren't putting with keeping maybe they just didn't put a priority in a women's team. That's the only
Mhm.
other thing I could think of because we've like for example, we mentioned Marina, our dad's alma mater. That school's won 2 state championships. That's
Mhm.
one more than that's one more women's than what Buchanan has won. And Marina, even though they've been decent at wrestling, they're like the men are not a powerhouse. They've had state places before, maybe a state champion here or there. They were nowhere near the title picture. They've never
Yep.
in the men's,
Yep.
but they've kind of found a niche in the women's, and again, they were able to take second.
Seconds.
So
Yep. All right. Yep. So we'll see how that goes as of next year. So on to the NCAA, the inaugural NCAA Women's National Championships, Matthew. Obviously, the big name out of everyone, Iowa. That's the true D1, team. But obviously, with there not being, a lot of teams, like there's Iowa, you have Lehigh, which is another school. Also, I'm seeing on the team placings, Lock Haven is obviously another one that's a D1 as well. But just looking at this, there's a lot of schools they're all D2, D3. So and I think it's just that those levels are able to field those programs a lot more than you're seeing with D1. Although I know that hopefully maybe Oklahoma State will have some go because I know that they had one girl attending Oklahoma State.
well, I think that comes back down to the whole I think that comes back to that whole fact that like definitely the former NAIA schools definitely put
Yeah.
more of a priority and were fielding those teams long before um the D1s decided to essentially jump on it. Basically they've taken more time to foster their own teams, whereas the D1s essentially you're spinning this off of their men's program. They really haven't had the time to obviously with recruiting because Iowa,
Well,
Iowa was second.
and here's the thing. I think that's really when people have been watching, because a lot of the focus, you'll see a lot of clips from Flow. It's all focusing on Iowa, especially because hey, they're the big name D1 school that's fielding women's wrestling. Plus, they've got Kennedy Blades, Olympic silver medalist. And she's just going to school and stuff, prepping for 2028. And so I think there was a lot of focus on there, and I'm very sure that a lot of people favored Iowa to win the national championship early on in the season. But here's the thing, with the results from the national duels for the women, we saw that Iowa got upset in the semifinals by North Central, College, and so I was thinking, well, that was very interesting that
Who did
happened.
place third.
Yeah. So as it turns out, Iowa did not win the inaugural NCAA national championships. That honor goes to McKendree. Now, I'm not going to say it was a blowout because McKendree won this by 5 points. With again, like you said, North Central placing third. It was really interesting reading there was someone who posted on one of the, some of the Facebook wrestling groups that I kind of, monitor and stuff like that, talking about how Goliath has fallen, and I think kind of goes back to just this thing about, I guess everyone was really propping up Iowa, just because it's Iowa. Kennedy Blades is in there, but that kind of makes me wonder. It's like, okay, is she just kind of carrying the program on her own with her name? And are the other girls, they got some catching up to do? Thoughts?
Well, if you look at the All-Americans, I wouldn't say that she's holding it up all by herself because there were several other All-Americans,
Right.
and one other champion as well. So I wouldn't say that there's clearly a learning curve. Again, this is, like I said, this is essentially a spin-off of the
They
women,
actually had
essentially
three
a spin-off
champions.
of the men's program. That's
Yeah.
that's how it is. So
And they actually had three champions. It would appear.
yeah,
I mean,
something else.
overall though, they
Yeah,
had nine All Americans.
yeah. And something else I'm going to point out is the fact that McKendry had the edge because they started their women's program about the same time that I was at MOBAP when we started our women's program. So that's over a decade, almost two. Well, I'm gonna say over a decade. Oh yeah, it is close to almost two. Basically, they've had a long time to build that base and build, a pipeline and investing in the women's program for as long as they have that, and the results definitely paid off
Well,
because they won the national championship. So
and considering also that was really what was really key to this was they also took three individual championships, so same as Iowa. But in their case, McKendry was able to have a 10th. So they went 10 for 10 on the All Americans, So for
that was the difference. That was the
yep,
5 point
that's the
difference.
difference. Yeah.
Oh,
Uh,
also a funny note. This one individual in particular, the 145 champion Belmere of North Central. So for those of us who pay attention to MMA, that is Frank Mir's daughter. Frank Mir being a former UFC heavyweight champion, and she is. I think she was a Nevada state champion, but she's definitely been in kind of been in that the
I think
combat sport. Well, she's also been in the combat sports sphere because she also does submission
yeah,
grappling
like
competitions. And she
like
might
ADCC or stuff
yeah,
like that, right?
yeah, stuff like that. And she might actually have a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because she's her dad is a Brazilian
Mm-hmm.
Jiu-Jitsu black belt. So yeah, so a funny thing, she's actually been calling out Brock Lesnar's daughter. The thing is, Brock Lesnar's daughter does not do any kind of
Yeah,
combat sports. She's a track
yeah,
athlete.
yeah.
She's
She's a
just
track
like
athlete.
she's
She's
like,
good.
I don't want anything to do with that. Not only that, his two sons also are not in combat sports, they're in hockey.
Yeah,
So it's like, I'm sorry, it's like that. If you're trying to do Mir versus Lesnar 3 with the girls, similar to the
yeah,
Ali Frazier with
yeah,
with the boxing girls, it's like, I'm sorry, I don't think that's gonna happen.
yeah, yeah. So anyway, so that's
Oh yeah,
again,
and Belmere did have to defeat Reese Laramendi from Iowa in order to win that championship.
and
She
that
she
might have
pinned.
actually been a difference too. That was probably another thing because of and I don't know if team scoring is the same for the the women's freestyle
Well,
versus the.
I was gonna say that that is a difference here is that they did like and that might be another difference as well as the fact that it's freestyle.
Mhm.
That's what this is. It's not folk style like the men's. In fact, they've done freestyle since essentially the beginning. There's one national tournament that I know of that because NAIA does the same thing where it's women's freestyle. There's only one women's tournament that I know of that was folk style, and that's NCAA, aka club.
Yeah.
So the and that is kind of another thing is that um this is clearly an investment to make sure that the women are actually going to be able to make their way into the Olympic pipeline, whereas you know wrestling men they have to adjust to freestyle, and a lot of the guys are and it's only the elite level guys that try to make that adjustment. And a funny thing, if we want to go one further with like Greco, you rarely see an NCAA All American even trying to do
Mhm.
Greco. You just don't.
Yeah.
I know that I've gone on this wild tangent, but it is that is kind of a thing. Is that with NCAA women's wrestling, they want to make sure that the women are actually going to be competitive, whereas the men it's like we've kind of been doing our own thing because when I don't know why Olympic wrestling when I don't know how it came about that when this diverging branches of catch wrestling because that is the root sport from which freestyle and folk style come from. I don't know how those branches happen, but the basically the Olympic International route went um more freestyle rules and the US um through college route went folk style rules, both from catch wrestling. So I don't know how that happened, but it did, and that's just how it is.
Also, just kind of a quick side note, because and I think our timer will probably start running soon, so do want to talk about sumo. But one thing I did forget is that the NAIA National Championships also were this past weekend as well. And Matthew, it looks like our perennial championship winner did their thing again, which was Grandview from Iowa, um, taking the title yet again. Um, over and this the second place was Life from Georgia, and then Oklahoma City was third from in that category. So
Well, that's just kind of a normal
they're
thing.
just yep, they're just so good. And then I did find Missouri Baptist. Somehow they finished with negative 0.5 points. So I think they had a unsportsmanlike conduct somewhere.
Uh, huh. Okay.
So it is what it is on that. So yeah, that concludes the wrestling part of this. We'll go straight into sumo to just kind of discuss how things were. So Matthew, we did not have time to cover much on the Banzuke portion, but we didn't really do that well. If you look at, I think we both finished in the top maybe 10%, I think, for our Banzuke guesses.
Yeah, yeah. There was a point where I was just looking at it. And I was just like, okay, we're on track, we're on track, and then just like,
Yeah.
and I was like, okay, well,
Anyway, just to kind of get into day one, and there was some interesting off the dojo stuff happening. Teruno
oh yeah.
Fuji, who is now Isagahama Oyakata, I don't know if he's suspended or what. but he's obviously not. He's staying back in Tokyo. Because obviously he had this little run-in with Hakuno Fuji, who is one of the survivors of the former Miyagi no Beya. It looks like they kind of had a fight or whatever, and Teruno Fuji somehow hitting him with a bottle. Don't know, but should be interesting
Oh,
how the NS.
that's what happened.
Yeah, the irony of all this. I mean, well, we don't know how much of that is true, but just based on reports we've been
Well,
getting.
well, well, we know that Teruno Fuji self-reported, which is kind of
Yeah.
rare.
Yeah, so that I think that was kind of the difference between when they really brought the hammer down on Hakuho versus, and I think Kisano Sato, with the current Nishono Sekibeya, also like there were some of his deshi or like Ono Sato had been kind of misbehaving and something. So I think they seem to be a little bit more lenient on the Hayas and the Uyakata when they self-report versus if there's actually this stuff comes out and then they got to ask about it. And I think that's kind of the difference. That's kind of what it was that led Hakuho being having the Heya taken away from him in a way.
Well, I don't know because I've been reading that precedent-wise, it's still possible that Teruno Fuji could at least lose control of the Heya. I don't know
Yeah,
because of how big and how influential Isegama um
yeah,
is. I don't closing it would be a huge thing
that's a
because
nightmare.
yeah,
That's
that would be a nightmare. It's like who are you going to relocate to these guys?
yeah, that's something that they just can't do. So who knows? And
Well, and I was reading that like one of their assistant oyakatas is kind of fulfills that qualification to where he could maybe um start supervising the Heya.
yeah, it'd be interesting to see. But let's go right into the results then, with our time running short. So, obviously, for day one, there was a one absence that was in the top division. So, Midori Fuji from Isega Hamabeya reports a heart condition. So, who knows what that's
I heard
about?
them say cardiac arrest, which is kind of worrying.
Yeah. So I mean, not much to really go on. Obviously, a lot of our like some of the crowd favorites. Asamayama lost, who's a former Ozeki, returned back, did manage to get a Kachikoshi in the last Basho. So that was his first Basho. Last Basho was his first Basho back since
I guess maybe we should probably review the
yeah,
top guys.
yeah. Just some other people who won. Ura won. Tamawashi lost. And then if you go into the top,
Impressively too.
yeah. I think my favorite match of the day was Takayasu. Because even though he allowed Churonomi to get a Morozashi, he really had a tight grip on Churonomi's Mawashi.
Yeah,
And
but
then,
his Mawashi was loose.
yeah, I
I
think though
heard
the go
I
ahead.
heard that that's actually a strategy with some of the belt guys. If they
Yeah,
want to get an advantage, they won't tie their Mawashis fully,
right.
which to me has always made me nervous, even though I do wear, stuff underneath.
Yeah. I really liked how he won his match. It was in Iwate Dashinage.
Yeah.
And then Kirishima, in his quest to return to Ozeki, this Basho took on Fujinokawa, who's kind of I like Fujinokawa's style. He's kind of a brawler in a way, but he's you know managed.
I hate to say it, I think he's gonna get eaten alive.
Oh yeah, this Basho,
He's
yeah, M2 is his.
he's just too small. It would be one
I
thing if you're small and you've got a technical advantage, but he's not going against guys less technical than him. These
yeah
guys are all technically better than him. So they're
yeah
going to eat him alive.
I think so. You're right. And then we had Kotozakura win his match. Aonishiki, kind of a little bit of some jitters there at the beginning with the mata, but he did manage to. And Wakamoto Haru tried to henkai him too.
I was gonna say he wasn't really, even with that hen guy, he wasn't really in danger.
Yeah. And then Onosato being Onosato with a trying to pull Wakataka Kage down.
Yeah, it looks like he's mostly back to normal. The problem is he's bad habits.
That is always his kryptonite, is pulling back, trying to pull, you know, every time he does that, it's like I don't know that I've seen him win trying to do that.
Maybe once or twice.
Yeah.
But that was when he was in the right situation, when the guy was kind of lower and he actually was able to pull it correctly. But when he does that, most of the time, the guy's standing upright and he just pulls him into him.
Yeah. So now he's giving away Kimboshi, much to the chagrin of the NSK.
And then if we're gonna round it out, Atami Fuji in his Shin Komusubi match lost to Hoshoryu.
Yeah, which he kind of gave Hoshoryu a run for his money, because Atami Fuji does have a winning record against Hoshoryu. Even after this loss, he still has a 6-5 advantage over him. So they've been kind of equal in a way. But Hoshoryu prevailed.
Hoshoryu has kind of been in an evolution this whole time. The reality is he's had to improve to get to where he is now, because there was a point where he would rely too much on his bak throws, and it's just like he had to learn to do more traditional sumo. And when he's learned that when he is patient and execute those throws correctly, they win. But there was a point where he was too reliant on those, and he wasn't. That's how it took so long for him to get to, Yokozuna.
Well, with that being said,
speaking of evolution, Atami Fuji finally figured out how to properly utilize his size, hence why he's now made it into Sanyaku.
Yep. With that being said, our time is up for today, and we want to thank everyone for tuning in. So next episode, we're hoping to talk more about the progress of the Basho, and hopefully talk some One Piece as well. So until then, take care, everyone.